Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, the game that mixes slash blends together Borderlands and some elements from D&D. I mean, mostly Borderlands, mostly, but a little bit of D&D, because technically they're playing a board game in this game, and it's kind of similar to Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, that DLC for Borderlands 2. If you played it, you know. If you haven't played it, you should go out and play it, because that is a great DLC. It's probably one of my favorite DLCs of all time. I'm not saying my favorite. I mean, it might be though, but I'm just saying one of my favorites of all time. But anyways, it's kind of like that DLC, but it's expanded upon and in about every single way. There are some new gameplay additions or changes in Wonderlands, and as soon as you launch the game, you'll see the first change slash one of the biggest additions in a Borderlands game, and that is when you start the game, you can now make your own character, which is cool. I kind of like it, but it also lacks a lot of options for things. I mean, most of the face options, I almost wish I could have chose no face, because most of the face options are just bad in my opinion. I didn't really like any of the face options, to be honest. And there's also not a lot of hairstyles too. I mean, they could have had more hairstyles. There's definitely more hairstyles that they've used in Borderlands, but there's just like 10 options or something in hairstyles. Of course, you unlock more as you go, but like some, there could have been more basic hair options. And it might seem like I'm just complaining about the face and the hair options a lot already, but I'm serious. I'm telling you, there was hardly any good options in my opinion. Of course it's just gonna be my opinion, but there's also a huge disappointment. So on top of that, as much as I like creating my own character, on top of all that, with the face options not being so good, the hair options not being the best, there's also no option for changing your armor throughout the entire game. I mean, technically there's some items, and when you have them equipped and everything, they change your look a little bit, and I'm pretty sure your armor changes. I'm not sure if it's level or story based, but I'm pretty sure your armor changes like once, because I'm pretty sure the armor looks a bit different. But I expected with this new character customization system that there would be options to change your armor and to like customize your armor more. Right now, the only options for your armor is basically color and pattern. That's not that great. I mean, there's more customization options, I feel like, to customize your characters, more head options and more body options, more like clothes, armor, whatever you want to call it, the body and the head. That's what you could customize in Borderlands. I feel like there's more options in Borderlands 2 than there is in this game that has an actual character customization system, which is really something that might be an accomplishment in itself, to be honest with you, to have a character customization system but have less options than like Borderlands 2, that you couldn't completely make your character. I don't know, something about that's weird, and it really kind of, I was excited at first, and then I was kind of disappointed with the character customization system. And that is all I'm going to say about that, because I could go on forever about this, so we're just going to move on. The next thing that you do once you customize your character, the next thing is basically a new stat system that's based off of D&D's system. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. Someone's gonna yell at me for this, but I'm not sure exactly what it's called. But it's like you got your skills, your basic skills like strength, intelligence, dexterity, stuff like that, along those lines. And you also get to choose a class, and each class has their unique skill tree, and they're better at certain things than other classes, and I kind of like it. I kind of like being able to choose your class and having these skill trees, and also later on you get to choose another class, so you can have 2 skill trees in 2 different classes, and you can switch between their abilities and stuff, which I like. It kind of gives you like two different main abilities that you can use, and like 2 different skill trees to upgrade. But I also find that they're lacking a little bit compared to like Borderlands 3 or even Borderlands 2. Like, take for example Borderlands 2, because that's my favorite one, Borderlands 2 still. But anyways, take Borderlands 2 for example, and take the commando guy, whatever his name is. I forget his name at the moment, but the commando guy, you know, you have your turret and you can get rocket launchers on it with the skill, and then if you get all the way to the bottom of the skill tree, which takes a while, you get something special. And depending on which skill tree you chose, you get something like one of the skill trees, you get all the way to the bottom, and it's basically when you deploy your turret, a nuke goes off. It's basically like a mini nuke, which is cool. But then you have like these class systems and these skill trees, and these skill trees, once you get all the way to the bottom, it's not as exciting. Like, yes, you can get some like overpowered stuff because your stats change or something changes, but it's not like some cool new ability that you can use that's at all the way at the bottom of the skill tree. So I also find that slightly disappointing, but at the same time, I like the classes and I like the skill trees. So it's kind of like I don't know, it's kind of like half disappointment, half not disappointment there. But it is fun. The skill trees are great, the classes are great. Just I wish at the bottom of the skill tree, instead of some stat changing thing like, oh, it changes your stats like by this much and it's a huge amount, or something, it gives you something, it kind of gives you something, but I want something new to do. Like, I get all the way to the bottom of the skill tree and it's just some brand new ability that I can use that I haven't been able to use because I haven't gotten to the bottom of the skill tree. But you get to the bottom, you got this new ability, and it's just cool. And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted, but that wasn't quite there. And another thing on that note, another thing that I thought was lacking in this game was gun variety. I am not sure if this was just me or if other people experience this too, but Borderlands is known for its guns, but I felt in this game there was less variety in the guns that I was getting. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the medieval inspired guns and just the D&D and medieval fantasy inspired stuff that's going on, but I feel like there's even more guns that were in the Borderlands 2 Assault on Tiny Tina, or Assault on Dragon's Keep. Man, I'm messing up my words right now, but I don't care. That I felt like there was more cool guns in that DLC alone than this game. Every time I'd get new guns in this game, I felt like I had these guns before. And it's just every single time, like, I would open something, I'd kill a boss, and for some reason it'd be like the same guns, just the same guns over and over, just dropping from them, same type of guns over and over. Like, for example, pistols. All I could seem to find for a pistol, there's 2 different ones that I would find. One would be a crossbow looking pistol, and it basically either shoots bolts or saw blades, and sometimes it would have a underbarrel attachment that would shoot like bombs, something that exploded. That was one of them. Or the other variant of the pistol was the like Raider one or the Bandit one that had the unlimited, you never had to reload but it could overheat, and that was like it for the pistols. That's all I've ever found for the pistols, just those 2 types. And it felt like that for every single type of gun. Like for the assault rifle, one of the main ones that I found and used, and it was also very overpowered, was the assault rifle that would shoot bombs. It would just shoot like just grenades or like C4. It basically shoots C4, and one mode the bombs would explode on impact, and the other mode they would stick and they wouldn't explode till you reload your gun. I found that gun I don't know how many times. It was like every time I found an assault rifle, it was one of those guns, And I know there's a few more that I found, but like that was the main one that I kept getting over and over again. And it's also super overpowered. That gun is literally probably one of the most overpowered guns in Borderlands, period. Just, it took, if you put it on the sticky mode and shot it, you could literally defeat any boss in the game in like 20 seconds, and that's not a joke. I feel like I should say this too. There's possible spoilers ahead, maybe some spoilers ahead. I'm not sure exactly what you would count as a spoiler in this game, but I'm gonna show one of the bosses that's near the end of the game, and to just explain something here.
How could you corrupt something so good and pure? I care about nature!
Let the magic begin! We're not tracking ammo, are we?
So as you can see, the gun, the bomb launcher, whatever you want to call it, the sticky bomb part, is literally the most OP thing in the game forever. Even when you get to level 40 and past, you just get this gun and it just destroys any enemy that's supposed to be tough and it has like a bigger health bar or something like that. This gun just destroys everything. That is the boss near the end of the game, which you think would be a bit more difficult, take a bit more time, but nope. Within literally like 15 seconds, one of it has 2 health bars, and within 15 seconds its first health bar is gone, just completely gone. And the only reason it took 15 seconds is because you have to stick all the bombs onto the boss and then reload for the bombs to do the damage. But it does so much damage, it's crazy. And the only reason some of these bosses take more than 1 minute is because they have like these invulnerability states. So once you hurt them so much, they go invulnerable, and then you have to wait like 30 seconds before you can do damage to them again. So the boss fights are actually really short, but they're longer because the enemies or the bosses can go invulnerable. But they're not actually, the bosses are not, they're not tough, they're not that hard to beat, and they take like 5 seconds.
Monstrosity shudders and dies, as though with release.
Forgive me, Your Majesty.
Anyways, enough about those weapons. There's also no grenades in this game, as they've been, well, I guess there's technically grenades, but they've been replaced with spells. So you can use 1 spell, and then if you're a certain class, you can use 2 spells. And the spells, I actually like the spells. And, you know, if you actually want to use grenades, you can, because there's actually a spell that's basically like grenades. So technically there's a grenade spell, if you will. But some of the spells include spawning an explosive skull that flies towards an enemy, blows up, calling down lightning, shooting lightning, calling many wyverns, which are basically like dragons, fire spells, ice spells. For some reason there's gelatinous cube spells. I don't know why that's a thing, but there is. And then there's like some spells that just like shooting fireballs or something, or like there's also like I don't know what you would call them, but you basically just like snap your fingers, and wherever you're pointing just like explodes or something like that. It's kind of like you got the Thanos snap basically, but as a spell. Like Thanos is just snapping his fingers, and that's what you got as a spell. And then there's also like a spell where you do the spell, and then like an explosion or something, some like a fire circle explosion kind of thing just happens around you, and or there's like some that guards you. There's a ton of different spells, and you're bound to find some spells that you like. And even though I was a bit disappointed with the lack of variety with the weapons, or at least what the weapons that I found compared to the previous games, I really like the spells. Another thing that is new in this Borderlands is the overworld, which is basically like the board, since this game is technically supposed to be a board game and a mix of D&D and Borderlands. But the overworld, yeah, it's like your board, and you can move around from location to location from the overworld. And there's also around the board, let's just call it a board from now on. Basically around the board you can get to your different locations. You can also find some secrets, some lucky die, and just some chests full of money, some different side missions from certain people. Most of the side missions there aren't really that special, but there are there are at least a few unique ones that you can find that are in the overworld. And there's also some locations that you'll probably, if you just follow the main story and you don't do any side missions, there are locations that you're not even going to see because they're not part of the story missions, but you can go there and there's some side missions there. And one of the other new mechanics is the lucky dice, or die. I don't know why I said dice. Lucky dice that you find, and every lucky dice that you find increases your chances of getting legendary loot, and there's like 200 something of them to find, so that, you know, that's time consuming, but you know, if you get a bunch of them, they stay per character, or not per character, for account. I'm pretty sure it's for your entire account and not just the character, so you can stack up the lucky dice and you know, increase your chances of getting legendary loot by collecting all the lucky dice.
You're feeling luckier, Mamacita.
I actually like the bosses in this game. They all had something unique about them, in my opinion, but the final boss, the absolute final boss of the game, which for some reason, maybe it's just me, but I think the final boss should always be the coolest and hardest boss in the game. But the final boss, the Dragon Lord, or whatever his name was, he was built up the entire time. The entire time you're playing the game, he was built up to be this, you know, hard boss, this boss that's just kind of, I don't know, he was built up to be like tough, and you gotta fight him, and he's just supposed to be this cool boss, and he's literally the easiest boss in the game. Pretty much, he's the easiest boss, and the only reason it took me 3 minutes to beat him, and the only reason it took me 3 minutes to beat him, the only reason it took that long is because, again, they have invulnerable states. So every time I would destroy him, just destroy all the health on him, he would be invulnerable for like 30 seconds or so, and he can't take any damage. After taking a ton of damage, he would always go invulnerable. So the fight was what I'm trying to say is the fight was disappointing. It lasted 3 minutes. There was really nothing that cool about it, and you could just destroy his health with that sticky bomb gun. It was crazy. All the bosses in general were pretty weak and disappointing. Like, I liked how they looked. I like how how they had something kind of unique about them. But the boss fights lasted like 30 seconds. Each boss. The boss fights were like the least, I don't know, exciting things of this game because of how quick they were, and all the excitement that it built up to be a cool boss fight just went away after it literally took 30 seconds to beat what was supposed to be a boss. It's not a boss if it takes the same amount of time to kill a boss as it does a normal enemy.
Take him down, newbie! You can do this! For you are the Fate Maker!
Magic time! Rise and destroy this hero! Top dog! Palace of the Templates! Thanks for taking one for the team. Into the skies! I feel magical. Awfully skullish today.
This is your unlife. For your dragon
spell is ready! The forces of evil are mine! Go for the eyes!
And I know what you might be thinking about now. Like right now, you're probably thinking, so far all I have said were how this game kind of disappointed me. And that is true, it disappointed me in certain ways, and you know, there's no hiding from that. But at the same time, the game is a lot of fun. The weapons are fun to use, even though there's not you know, more variety in the weapons, or at least the weapons I got. Again, I don't know if it's just me or the game, but I didn't get that much variety of weapons. But the movement feels great, the guns feel great, killing enemies, I probably shouldn't say the word killing because that is bad for YouTube, but you know, taking down enemies it feels great. The guns are great. There's a ton of variety in different enemies. Great level design. I like the levels. It definitely had some of my favorite locations out of any Borderlands game, especially the pirate / underwater themed locations. I just really liked those locations, and all that. Even though there was disappointing things, pretty much the game is about it's Borderlands, so it's as long as you don't really mess up Borderlands, it's gonna be a ton of fun, and this game was no exception. This game was a ton of fun, even though it had some disappointing elements and it could have been better. It was a ton of fun, and you know, that's honestly, that's a great thing in a game, and that's what's most important to me in a game. Is it fun? I don't honestly know why I even include this sometimes in certain games, but the graphics are, I mean they're the classic Borderlands cel-shaded look. I don't know what else you might be looking for. I really like, maybe that's why I include this sometimes, but like Borderlands has some very unique looking graphics. The cel-shaded look, not only does it look great, but just the cel-shaded look makes Borderlands unique, and I kind of wish more games would use the cel-shaded look, but then I guess it wouldn't be as unique because more games use it. But there's something about the cel-shaded look that I just really like for some reason, and I want more games with this cel-shaded or unique look like Borderlands. The story is kind of where the game failed for me the most, similar to Borderlands 3. Like, I really like the gameplay and the graphics, the gameplay, and a lot of stuff in Borderlands 3, but again, the gameplay is great, but I found the story very lacking in Borderlands 3, and I think the story was a problem, and it wasn't as good as 2, and I feel like some points in 3 messed up too. But anyways, to do with Wonderlands, I can't get invested in Wonderlands story. I just can't, because I know it's like, it's Tiny Tina's little setup thing, and I know by the end of it, it really didn't mean anything, and the characters, none of the characters, whatever the characters speak, they don't really add much to the story, to be honest. Only at the end, the very end of the game, does it add something to the overall story of Borderlands. It doesn't add a whole lot, but it adds some moments that are kind of from like, that kind of remind me of like Borderlands 2, but I just couldn't get invested into the characters and their stories, because again, I kind of knew how the story was going to play out. You kind of know, because it's Tiny Tina's, you know, it's in Tiny Tina's head, and it's a made up world in Tiny Tina's head, and it really doesn't have anything to do with the overall story of Borderlands. And I also just felt like none of the characters were really that great, to be honest, and none of them really mattered. But none of that matters, because but all the characters that were in this game, they're like, maybe I can count on one hand how many of them that I liked, and I liked Tiny Tina as a character, but I didn't really care as much for Tiny Tina in this game compared to like Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3, but some of the characters were just straight up annoying. They were just annoying, and I just hated some of the characters. And most of the characters I liked in this game were basically just previous characters just into the Wonderlands thing. So like, and some of them, or most of the ones I like, they weren't even in the story for that long, to be honest. Like Torg, whatever his name is, it's one of those things. He shows up at one point, and he's there for like maybe a few scenes, but like, I remember him in this game more than some of the other characters just because I like his character. Just something about his character. Yeah, I know some people say that he's kind of annoying, but I really like his character, but yeah, just in general, the story did, like, if the gameplay of Borderlands wasn't as good in this game, like if the gameplay itself wasn't that fun, I would not have stuck around for the story. That's what I can say about the story. The story didn't keep me going, the gameplay did. And that's probably why Borderlands 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, and my favorite Borderlands game ever so far, at least, unless they make another one that's better, but I doubt it, because I think Borderlands 2 has the best overall package. It has great gameplay, it has good story, it has good characters, you get a ton of content. Like, there's just a ton of, not only is the main game great and has a ton of content, there's also a ton of DLCs that add a ton to the game, and it's just overall, there's just so much to Borderlands 2, and there's hardly any bad things about Borderlands 2, in my opinion, of course. But, you know, I think Borderlands 2 is still, even though I like Wonderlands, I still think Borderlands 2 is a better game. Now, I don't usually include DLC when I talk about games because it's DLC, you know, some people have it, some people don't, but the DLC for this game sucks. I mean, if there was a tier list for DLC, I think Borderlands 3 and this game have the worst DLCs out of all the other Borderlands games. Borderlands 3 I thought was disappointing because it didn't add any new characters or anything, and they made a reason. Their reasoning was like, well, people don't really play the DLC characters. Well, you just add the DLC characters. I know it's probably more effort, but I play the DLC characters. I know people that play the DLC characters, but besides that, the DLC for this game is absolutely terrible. It sucks. It's basically limited to a mode that's at the end of the game. It's called Chaos Chamber, which is at the end of the game, and basically you spawn into a smaller map because there's smaller maps in this game based on your location, and you basically get put into a small map, and you kill some enemies, you pick a reward, you spawn into another chamber. It's called Chaos Chambers, and you try to go for a bunch of chambers, and at the end of the chambers you get a bigger reward, and you can get some legendary guns. And it's not a bad mode. I actually quite like the mode, but it can get repetitive, but there's nothing wrong with that mode. I like it being at the end of the game, having a little extra to do. But the DLC, all it does is add a boss and some new enemies and a few legendaries for that mode. It's limited to that mode. It doesn't add anything else but a boss, some enemies, some legendaries, and there's 3 DLCs. So if you got the season pass, that's all you got was some extra bosses, which you can kill pretty easily, some extra enemies. There's no new stories, there's no new locations, and I mean, actually, I think it does add a few, like, smaller maps for the cast, but I mean, there's no, like, new locations to go out and explore with the story and something like previous DLCs in Borderlands games. I mean, I've known some bad DLCs, but this game takes it to a whole another level. There's 3 of the DLCs are that bad. There's a 4th one that actually adds another class to play, but that is pretty much it. There's basically no new content that is added into the game for an extra $30, which is basically the same price as the game. So for buying the game for like $30-$40, you can spend another $30 and get almost no new content added onto the game, which is kind of crazy. I mean, I remember being disappointed when Borderlands 3's DLCs came out. because it didn't include any new Vault Hunters, but this game definitely takes the cake as the worst Borderlands DLCs out of any Borderlands. These DLCs are so bad, it actually reminds me of the same disappointment that I felt when I first played the Far Cry 5 DLCs. So Borderlands 2 still has the best DLCs in my opinion, and this game's DLCs, you might as well not even buy them. Unless you want that extra class, you might as well not even get the DLCs, unless you can get them all for like $5 or something, but you might as well not even get the DLCs for this game. So pretty much to end the video here, to sum it all up, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a fun game, and it's a decent addition to the Borderlands franchise. It's not anything incredible. It's not like the best Borderlands game so far. It's just kind of a neat and cool addition to the Borderlands franchise, and it definitely has its lows, and it has some good stuff in there, but it definitely has its bad stuff. The DLCs, of course, are awful. I can't like express how terrible the DLCs are, but I didn't even play through all the DLCs, to be honest. I played some of the DLCs, and then I just forgot about the rest of them and didn't do them because they're all the same. They're all the same thing. But you know, if you haven't got Tiny Tina's Wonderlands yet and you like the Borderlands franchise, first, I don't know what you're doing. You should probably get Tiny Tina's Wonderlands if you like the previous Borderlands games. If you don't like the previous Borderlands games, you're probably not gonna like this game, that's for sure. But definitely for sure, if you like Borderlands, this is a must get, because you're going to probably have a lot of fun. But just don't go into it expecting some you know, good story, because you know that was left behind. Good stories in Borderlands games were left behind in Borderlands 2, and they never returned. They just kind of stayed in Borderlands 2. So yeah, if you want some good Borderlands gameplay though, definitely get this game. And that's going to be it for this video. So hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you guys think about this video and what you think about Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because you want to be subscribed. And I'll see you guys next time.
Oh, what will we do with a sunken sailor? What will we do with this funky whaler? What should we do for a crew? Unveil her need, we're reforming. We say all men wanted, we say all men wanted, we say all men wanted, step in, we're employing.